Hey, my third grade mathematicians. All right, so we're going to be doing task 8 today, and we're going to be pulling all of those fraction ideas together. In fact, that's what the task is called, pulling it all together. So before I introduce the task to you, I'm going to read the essential understandings, what we want to make sure we understand as we are working through this task, okay? All right. So we want to be able to understand that the denominator tells us how many equal parts into which the whole or unit is divided. We also want to understand that the numerator tells us how many equal parts of that subdivided whole are there, okay? We also want to understand that rational numbers, fractions, have an infinite number of equivalent forms. Okay, so we want to be finding those equivalent fractions. And the forms are equivalent if the same portion of the set or area of the figure is represented, or they represent the same point on the number line. So making sure that we understand that equivalent fractions are the same amount, are equal amounts, okay? We also want to make sure we understand that comparison to known benchmark quantities can help determine the relative size of a fractional piece, okay? So thinking about the size of the unit fraction, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/6, 1/8, 1/12, that thinking about the size of those pieces can help us compare two fractions and knowing which fraction is greater, okay? All right, so looking at task 8, pulling ideas together, okay? We're going to be combining everything that we have talked about with fractions, equivalent fractions, comparing fractions, okay? So in this first activity, you're going to be naming the fraction of the shaded area and then naming other fractions that are equivalent, okay? And how do you know? All right. In this next problem, you're going to be shading 1/2 and then giving another name for 1/2. Okay, so again, finding those equivalent fractions. Think about the relationships between numerators and denominators. So in the third problem, you are going to be, again, finding the fraction of the shaded area, or of the whole area of the shaded amount, and write a fraction, describe the shaded portion. And then, this is important, explain the meaning of the denominator and the numerator. Okay, that goes back to those essential understandings, okay? We're also going to be placing fractions on a number line. Okay, so taking it back to our first week in fractions, thinking about that number line from 0 to 1 as one whole. Okay, then think about the size of those fractional pieces. Okay, and I always go back to that first lesson with brownies. Okay, thinking about the size of the fractional pieces as we continued to divide those brownies. Okay, so then again, you're going to be finding fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. Okay, and then in the last question, you're going to be comparing fractions. This is where you're going to, again, think about the size of those fractional pieces. Think about when the denominators are the same, what does that mean? Think about your equivalent fractions. Think about the size of the fractional pieces. Okay? So you are going to have some independent time to go through these questions and read the questions carefully, think through them. Okay, and then we're going to come back together and walk through this task, okay? If you have someone at home, you know, typically in our structures and routines of a lesson, you have your independent time, then you're able to share among your peers. So if you're not here at school, then you're not going to be able to do that with your peers in your class unless you're on a Google Meet But if someone's at home, it's always a great idea to communicate your ideas, okay? And then in the next video, we will come back together and go through these questions together, okay? All right, guys. You are doing great, and I will catch you in that next video.